Zainab believed she understood everything about God and the afterlife, but a sudden, unexpected accident changed her world forever. This video follows her sharing a life-changing, near-death experience that turned all her beliefs about religion and eternity upside down.
My name is Zainab, and I am 47 years old. I live in a simple two-story house in Lansing, Michigan, where I've spent most of my grown-up years. Before everything changed, I was just an average middle-aged mom, working as a pharmacy technician at the local CVS and raising 2 teens with my husband, Kareem. Coming from a strong Muslim family, my faith was at the core of my life. I prayed 5 times a day without missing a beat, fasted every Ramadan, and did my best to follow the teachings I had grown up with. My parents, who moved from Pakistan before I was born, made sure we practiced our faith traditions in America. That winter morning started off like any other. I was hurrying to get ready for my early shift, quickly making breakfast for my kids before school. The TV was on low, reporting a snowstorm expected later that week. I remember thinking that I should stop at the store for supplies after work. I didn't realize our carbon monoxide detector hadn't been working for weeks. Its batteries were dead, and somehow both Kareem and I had forgotten to replace them during our usual home checks. What we didn't know was that our old furnace had a crack in the heat exchanger, slowly leaking the invisible, odorless gas into our home. I started feeling a bit dizzy while packing the kids' lunches, but I just thought I was a little tired. My daughter Amira complained of a headache and wanted to skip school. My son Zain was upstairs taking a shower. Kareem had already left for his job downtown at the engineering company. The dizziness got worse while I was loading the dishwasher. The kitchen started to spin, and my vision went fuzzy around the edges. I remember trying to reach my phone to dial 911, but my fingers felt weird and heavy. The last thing I saw was Amira's scared face as I fell to the kitchen floor. I found out later that even though she wasn't feeling well, she still managed to call for help. The firefighters arrived quickly and detected high levels of carbon monoxide in the house. They pulled us out just in time. I was passed out, Amira could barely walk, and Zain was unconscious in the shower. The paramedics later told me my heart stopped in the ambulance. For 4 minutes and 37 seconds, I was clinically dead. But in those few minutes, it felt like I was gone for a lifetime, and it changed everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what happens next. Looking back, I realize how my entire life was leading up to that point. All those years of prayer, all the religious lessons I accepted without doubting, all my firm beliefs about the afterlife. None of it prepared me for what was coming. The doctor said I was unbelievably fortunate. If Amira hadn't called when she did, if the rescue team had been even a few minutes later, or if the carbon monoxide had been a bit stronger, none of us would have made it. But now, I know that it wasn't just luck. What happened after that was a divine meeting that showed me truths I never expected to discover. I had always measured my life by how well I followed the rules. Did I pray at the correct times? Did I dress modestly enough? Was I being a good example to my children of what a devoted Muslim woman should be? These thoughts were always on my mind, guiding every choice I made. My relationship with Kareem was based on this shared faith. We had met at the Islamic Center of Greater Lansing during a community event. His family, like mine, valued marrying within the faith. We brought up our children with the same values, sending them to Islamic school on weekends and making sure they understood the meaning of our beliefs. Working at CVS sometimes challenged my faith. There were prescriptions I had to handle that went against Islamic principles or customers whose lifestyles clashed with what I believed. But I always reminded myself that it wasn't my job to judge. Only Allah could do that. The morning of my near-death experience, I felt especially grateful. Amira had just been accepted to Michigan State University with a full scholarship. Zain's grades were picking up after a tough start in high school. Kareem had recently gotten a promotion. Everything felt perfect, just like I thought it should be for a family that followed the right path. That morning, looking out my kitchen window, I watched the neighbor kids waiting for the bus, bundled up against the freezing Michigan air. Mrs. Peterson, our neighbor, was shoveling her driveway, and I mentally planned to ask Zain to help her later. These small, everyday things seemed so stable and safe. I had no idea that within hours, my whole understanding of the world, of life and death, of God, of truth, would be turned upside down. Everything I believed was about to fall apart like a house made of cards in a gust of wind. People say that near-death experiences change you, but that barely explains what happened to me. This was more than a change. It was like being born again with fresh eyes, seeing reality clearly for the first time. What I found out in those 4 minutes and 37 seconds didn't just transform my life. It would touch the lives of everyone around me. As I went through my usual morning routine that day, I had no idea that by the end of it, I would have a message so powerful, so pressing, that I'd spend the rest of my days sharing it with anyone who would listen. A message about what truly lies beyond, about who God really is, and about the decisions we make in this life that matter forever. The second my heart stopped, everything was different. There was no tunnel of light like the stories you often hear. Instead, it was like I had been suddenly plunged into ice-cold water, a shock that spread through my whole being. I found myself floating above my body in the ambulance. The paramedics were working urgently, but their voices sounded muted, like they were far away. One was doing chest compressions, and another was getting the defibrillator ready. I saw myself lying there, pale and lifeless, still in my blue CVS shirt with the silver necklace Kareem gave me for our anniversary. But the strange thing was, I wasn't scared. It was like watching a movie of someone else. I noticed details I would have never caught. The young paramedic had a tiny coffee stain on his sleeve, and there was a crack in the ambulance ceiling shaped just like a question mark. Then it all went black. Not just the darkness you see when you shut your eyes, but a thick, heavy darkness that felt almost alive. I sensed myself moving through it, getting pulled deeper by an unseen force. Then I realized I wasn't alone. There was a presence with me, both beautiful and frightening. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was an angel. Not the soft and gentle kind from picture books, but something incredibly powerful and ancient that made my soul tremble just being near. The angel didn't speak with words. Instead, pictures and understanding filled my mind. I saw my whole life flash by, but it wasn't just about what I had done. I saw how every choice I made rippled out, affecting others. A time I was rude to a coworker, and how it impacted her entire day. A moment when I helped an elderly lady with her medicine, and how that small kindness gave her hope when she needed it. But what shocked me the most was seeing how my dedication to Islam had influenced others. I saw people I had pushed to follow stricter religious rules, thinking I was helping them. The angel showed me how, instead, I had led them further from the truth. I wanted to argue, to defend what I believed, but in the angel's presence, my excuses felt weak. It revealed more to me, things from history I never knew about, hidden truths about Muhammad. It was like a veil had lifted from my eyes. The darkness around us began to shift. I noticed other souls moving through it. Countless souls, maybe in the millions. Some were rising toward a bright light I hadn't seen before, while others were sinking lower, their spiritual forms growing fainter the further they went down. The angel revealed the reason why. Each soul's destination wasn't by chance. It was shaped by what they had believed and how they had lived their lives. I saw people from various faiths, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, and others, all realizing that their sincere beliefs hadn't been enough. The truth had been accessible to them, but they chose different ways. I watched as some souls recognized their error too late. They called out to Allah, to their prophets and gods, but received no answer. The angel showed me that only one way led to the light above, and only one truth could prevent a soul from falling into darkness. Then, the angel took me closer to the descending souls. The experience was terrifying beyond words. Their pain was so strong it felt like a force pushing against me. I saw people I had known in life, good people who prayed 5 times a day and gave to charity, but they were being drawn downward. Their prayers to Allah echoed hopelessly in the emptiness. I recognized Brother Kareem, who had led prayers at our mosque for so many years. His soul was fading as he fell, clutching his prayer beads. Beside him was Sister Fatima, who had taught our children Quran lessons. Their faces showed the same awful understanding that I was feeling, that all our devotion had been wrongly placed. Then, the angel revealed something that broke my heart. Children's souls, even those from my own community. But unlike the adults, these children were being pulled up toward the light. The angel made me understand that they were innocent, not yet set in false beliefs. This grace brought me both comfort and deeper sorrow, knowing that many parents would never be reunited with their children. As we moved through this spiritual space, I started to notice something strange. Some souls appeared to have chains of light wrapped around them, but these weren't physical chains. They were made of beliefs, traditions, and practices that had held them captive in life. I saw my own chains too, glowing with Arabic script and Islamic symbols. They were beautiful but heavy, and they pulled me downward. The angel then led me to a vast, glowing courtroom, made entirely of light. Souls appeared before a judge I couldn't see directly. The presence was so holy and bright that I couldn't look straight at it. Each soul's life was reviewed, not just by what they had done, but by the choices they made about truth when it had been available. I saw a woman from our mosque being shown every moment she had encountered Christian teachings, every time she had passed by a church or heard the gospel and dismissed it. Each moment stood as a witness against her. The truth had been there, but she had chosen her familiar beliefs. Then it was my turn to face judgment. Every time I had proudly said the Shahada, every time I taught my kids that Jesus was only a prophet, every time I called the Bible corrupted, it was all laid bare. The weight of my mistakes was overwhelming. But unlike many other souls, my judgment was not final. I was being shown all of this for a purpose. The angel made it clear that I would be given a chance to go back and share what I had seen. But first, I had to learn much more. We began rising toward the light above, and I felt my chains of false beliefs start to break apart. As we moved higher, the light became more intense. It wasn't harsh or blinding. It felt like pure love washing over me. I saw what looked like different levels or realms, each one more beautiful than the one before. But the angel explained that these were not the layers of heaven I had been taught about in Islam. Then I saw him, Jesus Christ, but not as I had understood him before. He wasn't just a prophet or a good person. He was God himself. His presence was so full of love it felt like it would break me apart. The lies I had believed about him dropped away like leaves in the wind. I understood the truth about the Trinity, not three separate gods as I had been taught, but one God in three persons. It was like trying to describe colors to someone who had only ever seen black and white. You can't truly grasp it until you experience it. The angel showed me moments from history, real history, not what I had been taught. I saw Jesus' crucifixion, which I had learned never happened, and his resurrection. I saw the early Christian church and how its message had spread. Then I witnessed how other religions, including Islam, had twisted and changed these truths. I saw something that shook me, the real origin of Islamic teachings. The angel revealed scenes I had never known, showing how political power and human ambition shaped the religion I had followed so faithfully. The real Muhammad was very different from the perfect prophet I had been taught to admire, but this was not shown to judge Muslims. It was to help me understand why so many sincere people had gone off course. I saw how Satan had carefully crafted this deception over the centuries, using people's natural need for rules and structure to pull them away from true salvation. The angel then led me to what seemed like a massive library, but instead of books, it held people's life stories, what they had done and what they could have done. I saw other paths my life could have taken if I had accepted the truth earlier. I saw my children growing up without the burden of false beliefs, my husband and I leading others to true freedom instead of deeper chains. Then I faced the hardest part. I was shown people I had influenced, friends I encouraged to be more faithful to Islam, neighbors I invited to the mosque, even my own children whom I taught to reject Christianity. The angel made me see that I would be held accountable, not only for my own choices, but for how I had influenced others. But in the middle of this heavy revelation, there was also hope. I saw how my near-death experience would impact others. I watched as my future story would help others break free from the same chains that had held me down. The angel showed me Muslims who would hear my testimony and begin to question their beliefs, starting their own search for truth. The light became even brighter, and I found myself in what I can only describe as heaven's throne room. God's presence was so strong there that all my old ideas about worship seemed empty in comparison. This wasn't the faraway, detached Allah I had prayed to. This was a Father who knew me completely and loved me endlessly. In that throne room, I saw something that forever changed my view of salvation. I watched souls enter heaven, not because of their own good deeds, but because they had put their faith in Jesus Christ. Their lives reflected this faith through the sacraments and good actions led by the Holy Spirit. I finally understood that salvation is a gift, accepted by faith, confirmed through sacraments and shown by good works. The angel showed me how my religious devotion, which I thought would save me, had actually been an obstacle. My strict following of Islamic laws, prayers, and fasting were not paths to God, but my attempts to earn what could only be freely given through faith in Jesus and participation in his sacraments. I was allowed to see real conversations in heaven, souls who had recently arrived talking with Jesus. Some had been Muslims like me, others Hindus, Buddhists, or atheists. What stood out was how many of them said, "But I thought I was right." The love they felt was overwhelming, but for many, it was too late. Then the angel led me to a surprising vision. the saints of Christian history, but they weren't far off untouchable figures. They were alive, joyful, and humble. I saw them worshiping together with former Muslims who had found the truth while they were still alive. There was no special status, no ranks, just a shared celebration of God's grace. Then I was shown the most difficult vision. I saw hell, not just as a separation from God, but as a place of real pain, where fire symbolized the deep suffering of eternal punishment. The souls weren't being tormented by devils with forks. Their torment was being in a place where God's presence was completely gone, and the fire was both a real thing and a picture of their endless sorrow. I saw the religious leaders I had once looked up to, both men and women who had influenced thousands in the wrong way. Their pain grew deeper each time a new soul arrived because of their teachings. The weight of knowing how many they had misled added to their torment. But even in their suffering, they admitted that their fate was fair. Then the angel showed me something that truly broke my heart. Millions of Muslims were praying with all their hearts, but their prayers seemed to hit an invisible ceiling made of brass. It wasn't that God couldn't hear them, but they were praying to a wrong idea of who God is. I watched as Satan took advantage of their genuine devotion, tricking them into thinking that following religious rituals was enough while they missed the real salvation found in faith in Jesus Christ, participating in the sacraments, and living out good works from true faith. Then, I was shown what my own future would be like if I chose to return to life. I saw myself facing rejection from my Muslim friends, difficulties with my own family, and people accusing me of betrayal and being mentally ill. Yet, I also saw how many lives would be changed by my story. The angel made it clear that the road ahead would be hard, but it would have eternal meaning. What happened next is tough to describe. I was given a choice. I could stay in heaven or go back to share what I had learned. Heaven was filled with comfort and peace, and a big part of me wanted to stay. But when I saw the faces of those who would be affected by my testimony, including my own family, I knew what I had to do. Before sending me back, the angel showed me one last vision. I saw my own judgment day, but this time I was looking at it from the view of someone who had completed their mission on earth. I saw myself standing in front of Jesus, not as a judge, but as my Savior, hearing him say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." The joy in that future moment was worth more than any temporary suffering I knew I would face. Coming back to my body felt like being pushed through a tiny, tight tube. My chest ached from the CPR, and the bright hospital lights were almost blinding compared to the pure light I had seen. The first face I saw was Kareem's, with tears running down as he held my hand. Our children were there too, their eyes red from crying. The doctors told me it was a miracle, saying most people don't survive carbon monoxide poisoning. But I knew it wasn't just luck. Once the doctors left, I tried to tell my family what I had experienced. Kareem thought I was just confused from the lack of oxygen. Amira and Zain looked at each other with worry. No one wanted to believe that I, a faithful Muslim wife and mother, was now saying these things. The first few weeks back home were the hardest. News spread quickly among our Muslim community. Friends I had known for decades stopped talking to me. The imam visited, suggesting I needed to see a psychiatrist. My parents called from Pakistan, crying and begging me to take back what I was saying. Kareem was patient in the beginning, thinking it was just a temporary phase. But things got complicated when I stopped going to the mosque and started attending a local church, participating in the sacraments, and serving others in charity with my new faith. He would catch me praying the rosary or reading the Bible, understanding verses in a way I had never been taught before in my Islamic education. We argued about what to tell the kids, and whether I was going through a mental breakdown. But over time, something incredible began to happen. People started reaching out to me in secret, other Muslims who had their own doubts and questions. A friend from the mosque confessed she had been quietly attending church services and was curious about the sacraments. My daughter Amira began asking questions about what I had seen, and this time, she truly listened. 6 months after my near-death experience, I was invited to share my story at a small church. I was nervous, but once I started talking, something changed. The words flowed easily. People were moved to tears, even some Muslims who had come out of curiosity. That day, 3 people chose to follow Christ, expressing their faith through baptism and committing to a life of good deeds. Now, 2 years later, our home has become a safe space. Every week, people come with their questions, former Muslims, doubters, and others who have had their own spiritual experiences. Kareem still hasn't accepted my faith, but he's become more open. Just last week, I saw him reading the Gospel of John when he thought I was asleep. The threats of violence have mostly faded, though I still get hateful messages online. But none of that matters. After what I've seen, after knowing what I know about eternity, nothing in this temporary life seems scary anymore. My greatest joy happened 3 months ago when Amira told me she had been secretly praying to Jesus. She had her own encounter with God's love while reading the Bible I had given her. She wanted to participate in the sacraments and live out her faith by helping others. Zain is still trying to make sense of it all, but he's asking good questions. Every night, I thank God for giving me another chance, for letting me come back to help others find the truth. I know my story might sound unbelievable. 2 years ago, I would have been the first to dismiss it. But I can't deny what I experienced, and I can't stay quiet. There are too many people on the wrong path, just like I was. If even one person finds the truth because of my story, then all I've lost will be worth it.
If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story of God's love. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You never know how it might change their life forever.